Let's look at some of the transfer stories of the day. Ben Jacobs joins us now. Good afternoon, Ben.
Good afternoon, gents. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Andy, just noticing a story around Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, maybe not completely unexpected. They've not been able to sort out a deal to keep him at Everton. It could be that he's a free agent. There will be an element of buyer beware. I mean, a good player when he's fit, but he just hasn't been fit enough in recent years. So it'd be interesting to see what happens to him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a case of a striker who, when fit, can add goals, but there's a high wage as well. And remember, 12 months or so ago, Newcastle made a play for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and they couldn't agree terms with the player, even though there was a package in place with Everton. So there's two aspects here. One is, can he stay fit? Two is the wage. And I think that's what's also delaying negotiations between Everton and Calvert-Lewin. They've now got only a matter of weeks to try and resolve it. My read from Everton's statement is that they would like to keep Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but they're no closer at the moment to agreeing a deal. And I would keep an eye on Premier League clubs in particular, because I'm told that Dominic Calvert-Lewin would prefer to stay in England, even though he's had offers in the past from Fiorentina in Italy. Leverkusen have looked in the past. Leipzig made him an offer in January to see whether there was a possibility of a pre-agreement. But Calvert-Lewin's preference is to stay in the Premier League. We can't discount a new deal with Everton, but obviously suitors are on alert now because they know there's a possibility to agree something. And signing him on a free transfer naturally mitigates a little bit of the risk if somebody is to take a gamble regarding can he or can't he stay fit.
Yeah. Manchester City probably would have liked to have got the Ryan Cherky deal done before last Thursday when he played so brilliantly in that game against France against Spain. And went viral. But I think it is done. Is it pretty much done? Are we here?
Yeah, agreed in principle pending the formalities of 40 million euros deal. And this was something that took a bit of time because, contrary to some suggestions, Turkey didn't have a release clause of in and around 20 million euros. So City have to negotiate a package that's double that wrongly reported number. And Lyon were quite firm on the asking price that it had to be above 30 million euros. With add-ons, it's 40 million euros. And now Turkey's going to undergo a medical very quickly in order to be registered in time for that June the 10th deadline. And if all goes according to plan, he will be a Manchester City player in time for the Club World Cup, as of course will Ryan Aït-Nouri, who has done his medical and signed his own 5-year contract, and he'll also join Manchester City in time for the Club World Cup from Wolves.
They signed a lot of players in January as well, so they're obviously not too concerned about PSR. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think Manchester City are just looking for a revamp to back Pep Guardiola. Some say it's an indication they're also confident that there won't be significant punishment regarding the 115 charges. City have always vociferously denied any guilt, and we're still waiting to determine what might be the repercussions of that. But January was all about need to make sure they qualified for the Champions League. And now Manchester City are kind of finessing around the fact, one, Cherky can come in and fill a bit of a Kevin De Bruyne role. Two, Ilkay Gundogan extended his contract, but City might still be open for offers there. There's Saudi interest in Bernardo Silva. So there's been room for Manchester City to still add more, even though, as you say, they were very busy and aggressive in the market in January.
The three men in demand, Victor Osimhen, Gyokeres and Sesko, of course. We keep hearing the stories about where or where not they're likely to pop up. Let's get the latest on Osimhen. Is this true that he refused a move to Saudi and is now sort of up in the air again about where he could play next season?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it was a big surprise because for months, many other suitors in Europe felt Osimhen would go to Saudi Arabia. Al Hilal had the money. They were pushing. They made 3 different offers. The last was 40 million euros net. Right. And yet Osimhen went back to Nigeria, was given a deadline originally of Friday, delayed, rejected, got another improved offer, and then yesterday had to make a final decision, and he said no. So now you've got Galatasaray, who somehow are trying to make the deal permanent after a successful loan, and they've been able to put together an incredible salary package of well over 20 million euros net a year. And I think Osimhen has used the leverage of Saudi Arabia to get them to go up. But you've got PSG, you've got Juventus, and now maybe some Premier League suitors might be on alert because they felt like Osimhen wouldn't drop his wage demands, was looking for that Saudi money, and in addition to that, it was kind of locked. He would go early in the window, but suddenly it's a more open race. So we wait and see whether any of the Premier League clubs that have looked before decide to re-enter that race. But it's an open situation with Victor Osimhen, and all we know definitively now is he said a final and hard no to Saudi Arabia. So there'll be no coming back from this later in the window. It was now or never, the Al Hilal offer. Osimhen said no, and Saudi dealmakers are not prepared to make him another offer.
There was a story yesterday suggesting that Chelsea might try and hijack Arsenal's Benjamin Sesko deal. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, Sesko's one of the names that Chelsea have considered. They might add another striker because Christopher Nkunku is expected to depart. It would be interesting to see if he's part of the travelling party. I think Chelsea will kind of have a so-called bomb squad that stays at Cobham with the likes, for example, of Ben Chilwell, Amanda Broja, all of which allows them time to find new clubs. So let's see if there's a clue with Christopher Nkunku as to whether he travels or not. But Chelsea may look for another forward. It's just whether it's a defined number 9 like Sesko, and then you've suddenly got Delap, and it might call into question the future of Nicholas Jackson, but Enzo Maresca said publicly he's backed, or you try for that more versatile behind the striker player, but then you've got Cole Palmer and Esteval Willian coming in who wants to play central as well. But that's kind of where Chelsea's interest in theory lies in Morgan Rodgers, even though Villa don't want to sell. So the kind of profile that Chelsea may add if they look for more goals is still kind of to be determined. But Viktor Gyokeres, Hugo Ekitike, Benjamin Sesko are 3 names. I think the expectation is that Arsenal are advancing on Sesko and are confident because they got a kind of yes from the player 12 months ago before he decided to stay at Leipzig. So I can see a situation where Sesko goes to Arsenal and then Chelsea determine if they are going to add another striker. Liverpool, Chelsea may be going head-to-head for Hugo Ekitike. And that might open the door for Manchester United to somehow try and pull off Viktor Gyokeres, who would be open to a move to Old Trafford even without Champions League football. But of course, Manchester United will need outgoings first if they're to finance that deal.
Jack Grealish is an interesting one. There was the story last week on the back of his response to Gabby Agbonlahor on talkSPORT, standing his corner. There is a feeling, we understand here, that he's going to be looking to play elsewhere next year. Newcastle have been mentioned. Everton were mentioned yesterday as a club under new ownership, a new ground that could show an interest. But I think City would have to pick up a fair chunk of the wages, wouldn't they? It would probably be a loan deal at the moment.
Yeah, if Everton are to advance this, it would only be a loan, possibly with an option, and Manchester City would have to contribute to the wages, unless, of course, Grealish decided he wanted to significantly reduce his package. So they could be ones to watch. I think the fact that Everton are exploring Grealish and they tried for Liam Delap shows you how ambitious the Freakham Group are going to be. A Villa return, I get asked about a lot. I'm not sure that's advancing, but it is true that Villa will look to strengthen in that position, especially because they've not taken the option to buy Marcus Rashford. Newcastle may be one to watch, but the priority is the right side, really, for Newcastle United. And if they can somehow enter the race for Bryan Mbeumo, even though the players said he wants to join Manchester United, that would be a bigger priority. And again, a bit like we were speaking with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Grealish's likely priority is to stay in England, play regular Premier League football, and hope he can force his way back into Thomas Tuchel's England plans. Good
stuff. Ben, thank you very much as always.
Thanks, guys.
Ben Jacobs there with the very latest from the transfer window. It's all unfolding at talksport.com. All the latest news. Alex Crook keeping a close eye on stuff. And don't forget, every night you can get all the latest transfer news. You can check out the Transfer Insiders with Ollie Klink and Rory Jennings tonight from 7 p.m. Also available as a podcast on the talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.